Welcome to Unit 03, Lesson 06, India Geography and Early Society Video Overview. I'm absolutely thrilled you're here. Today in this explainer, we're going to do something pretty incredible. We're stepping into the shoes of archaeological detectives to decode an ancient, highly advanced civilization. And the kicker? We're going to do it without being able to read a single written word they left behind.
Here's our roadmap for today. First, busting Indus Valley myths. Second, the geographic foundation. Third, urban planning and artifacts. Fourth, connecting geography to trade. And finally, number 5, the great climate what if. Let's just dive right in.
Section 1, Busting Indus Valley Myths. So before we look at the physical clues, we really need to clear away 3 major myths that honestly trip up a lot of people. Myth number 1 is this idea that the region was just one uniform landscape. Definitely false. It spanned over 725,000 square kilometers, covering everything from the freezing Himalayas down to the Arabian Sea. Myth 2 assumes geography just mechanically determined their culture. Not true. Geography sets the stage, sure, but human ingenuity actually builds the culture. And myth 3, probably the biggest one out there. The idea that because their script is undeciphered, historians just know nothing about them.
Actually, let's hover on that last one for a second, because the reality is totally different. Even without a readable script, even without epic poems or, ancient tax records, the physical artifacts they left behind give us a massive, detailed window into their everyday world. The artifacts themselves speak volumes about advanced urban planning, mass production, and long-distance trade.
Which leads us straight to our ultimate detective question for this explainer. If we can't read their writing, what exactly do the physical clues in the landscape actually tell us about these people? How do they live? How do they trade? And how did they pull off building such a massive network of cities?
That brings us to Section 2, the geographic foundation.
Geography is literally the starting point for everything here. Picture this. The Indus River flows south from the towering Himalayas, carving its way all the way down to the Indian Ocean. And as it flows, it brings this incredibly rich alluvial soil with it. This super fertile environment meant early farmers could cultivate crops like wheat, barley, and even cotton, which, by the way, was totally unknown in ancient Mesopotamia at the time. This rock-solid, stable food supply, it acted like rocket fuel and triggered a massive population boom.
I mean, just look at this number, 1,000. At its height, around 2000 BC, archaeologists have found over 1,000 urban centers of varying sizes scattered across this whole expansive region. We are talking about an interconnected society of potentially up to 5 million people. This wasn't just a handful of isolated, dusty towns. This was a massive, sprawling, highly complex network of settlements.
Moving right along to Section 3, Urban Planning and Artifacts.
So when archaeologists actually started digging up these sites, they found something mind-blowing. These cities were strictly organized into 2 distinct sections. You had a residential lower city, and then this massive walled-off area known as the citadel. To put that in perspective, at Harappa, the mud brick walls enclosing the citadel were nearly 50 feet high. That is like a modern 5-story building made entirely of mud bricks. These monumental spaces likely housed the ruling elite and served as their major ceremonial centers.
But honestly, down in the lower city is where their engineering genius just shines. They had these incredibly sophisticated grid-like streets and full-on citywide drainage networks with actual covers for servicing. Homes even had indoor toilets and running water from private wells. I mean, these are luxuries we take for granted today, right? But for the ancient world, it's an absolute marvel. Some multi-story houses even had wind-catching devices on their roofs to pump cool air inside. Meanwhile, back up in the citadel, they built massive public baths, like the famous one at Mohenjo-Daro that's 40 by 23 feet, right alongside huge granaries to keep that agricultural surplus safe and dry.
And if you want to know their absolute greatest achievement, it's got to be technological standardization. Across hundreds and hundreds of miles, you find the exact same sizes of baked mud bricks and mass-produced pottery. And get this, they used a universal system of cubical stone weights for trade that was mind-bogglingly precise. Just like we use standard weights at the grocery store, they had a system that measured units down to 1.6 millimeters. You simply do not invent a measurement that tiny unless your artisans and engineers are operating with absolute, meticulous precision. It's just wild.
Which brings us to Section 4, Connecting Geography to Trade.
Now we're going to map out a formal historical argument using the CER model. That's claim, evidence, and reasoning. Our claim here is that the physical geography, specifically the Indus River flowing right into the Arabian Sea, allowed for this vast maritime and land-based trade network.
The evidence, archaeologists have dug up unique Indus Valley seals, along with precious stones like lapis lazuli and carnelian, hundreds of miles away in ancient Sumerian cities like Ur. So the reasoning is pretty clear. Merchants use the river as a superhighway to export their mass-produced crafts and surplus food, trading them for foreign resources like tin and bronze. But we have to acknowledge our uncertainty here. Since we still can't read their writing, we just do not know what the exact political structure or government looked like that regulated this massive, perfectly standardized trading empire.
Okay, let's look at Section 5, the Great Climate What If.
So let's test our understanding with a transfer exercise by changing an environmental condition. Predicting the impact of a shifting climate shows us this devastating domino effect. Step 1. Let's say a tectonic event causes the river to completely shift its course, or maybe the seasonal monsoons just fail. Step 2. The immediate result is the collapse of their highly intensive agriculture. Without that massive food surplus, the land simply cannot support incredibly dense populations of 30,000 people packed into a single city. And that leads right to Step 3, the total abandonment of these great cities, massive migration into rural areas, and the complete breakdown of their standardized long-distance trade networks.
And you know what's crazy? The archaeological record maps almost perfectly to this exact timeline of collapse. Look here, around 2800 BCE, we see the rise of these urban centers. Fast forward to 2000 BCE, and they hit their absolute peak, sprawling cities, thriving standard trade, the whole shebang. But then, starting around 1800 BCE, the evidence drastically changes. The strict urban grids are just abandoned. Those incredibly precise weights completely disappear. Even their unique writing system fades away. The environment fundamentally shifted, and with it, their entire architectural and social systems broke down over the next few centuries.
So I'm going to leave you with this one provocative thought. If the sheer bounty of geography built the magnificent, deeply structured Indus Valley civilization, just how fragile is any complex society when its foundational environment shifts? It really makes you think, doesn't it? Thank you so much for exploring the past with me today. Unit 3, Lesson 06, India, Geography and Early Society Video Overview.